Hi guys, welcome to a new video. Before we begin, a public apology about the sound on my videos. I had a few people tell me that the sound was very low. On my original videos, I was only recording those for me. They were for reference so that I could go back to them later in case I forgot how I made some of the more complex stuff. So I had the decibels lowered on purpose because I have noisy housemates and our building is getting renovated, so there's a lot of drilling and banging in the background. But I thought that since then that I'd started making videos for the public viewers that my sound was better, and it turns out that it's fine for some people, but for other people it's still too low. So hopefully I fix that now. It seems, whatever reason, whenever I activate my laptop, turn my laptop on, and plug in my headset, it defaults my microphone down to 60%. I'm trying to find out a fix for that, but until then I'm just going to have to keep going in and putting it back up. So hopefully this video should be nice and loud for everybody. And then secondly, I had my first dislikes on some tutorial videos, yeah, which is fine. I don't mind at all, because you can't please everybody, but if you do give a dislike, just leave me a comment so that I know why you dislike it, so that I can improve, because I'm doing this as a hobby and to teach people, so if there's something that I'm doing that isn't helpful, let me know so that I can make this a better experience for other people, because I don't care about how many views I get, how many subscribers I get. All I care about is whether or not people are learning and gaining knowledge from my videos. So if you give me feedback, that would be amazing. So let's begin. We're going to make a shield from a particle system that you can attach to the character that will follow the character around. So I'm just in a blank map here because I don't need anything else other than my guy. That was very loud. So we have this texture. This is just hexagons that I found on Google. I just googled hexagon alpha and I like the look of this one because it's got like a nice gradient. It's not a 512 by 512. I've changed it to a 512 by 512 because this is a power of 2, so it can emit better, which just improves performance. So we're going to make a new material. I'm going to call this shield underscore M. And I'm going to drag this in and pull this over. I'm going to change this to a translucent on the material. You guys are going to regret asking me to increase the volume if I cough at any point, because I do seem to do that a lot. I try to mute my mic, but sometimes you can't catch them. I'm going to make a particle color and plug this into the emissive. And now before I plug this in anywhere, I'm going to quickly grab a Fresnel, which is spelled F-R-E-S-N-E-L. So if you're searching for that, make sure to put that S in there. It's silent, don't you know? Now what this does is it creates a nice glow around the edge of a spherical object. So what we're going to do, lots of clicks, hold M and left click for a multiply. We're going to multiply the texture by the Fresnel and plug this into the opacity. And now what we get is like this nice outer glow, but we still get our texture pattern. Now I'm going to hold U and left click to get a texture coordinate and put this into the UVs, and I'm going to set this to be 5 on each so that we get some more tile, because I want this to have quite a lot of the pattern. As we can see there, it's a lot bigger now. So the next thing I'm going to do is just apply it and save, because I'm pretty much done with that for now. We can see how that goes. I'm going to right click, particle system, shield underscore P. I'm going to open this up, and now we're going to be using mesh data. So right click in the emitter, go to type data, and we're going to new mesh data. I'm going to quickly save this, and I'm going to show you what we're going to use and why we're going to use it. So if I go to content and I search for sphere, now we have here different spheres. These are materials, but these are both meshes. We have the material sphere, which is here, and we have the shape sphere, which is here. Now, the material sphere is lower, is a lower amount of polys and a lower amount of tris than the shape sphere, and you can notice that there's a little bit of a jagged edge. Now, preferably you guys will make your own sphere with smoothing groups and things so that you're not going to see these jagged edges quite so much, and the unwrap will be a little bit better. Like you can see there's a seam here and a seam here. But for this example, I'm using this because of the pivot. So this little widget here, also known as a pivot, decides how we move things and how we rotate things. Whoops. So we can rotate this. Yay! Now here, the pivot is exactly in the middle, but on the shape sphere, the pivot is at the bottom. Now what this does is it changes the point of scale and the point of rotation. So if we rotate from here, we're going to rotate around that pivot point, which gives us this really weird rotation. Whereas this one is really nice. And the same can be said about scale. So this is going to scale towards the bottom, and this one is going to scale towards the middle. And that's based on where the pivot is. So I'm going to quickly delete these. And we're going to be using the material sphere because of the pivot point. The pivot is in the middle, and that's going to be very important for what we're going to do. So let's open up our shield, and we're going to go to the mesh data, and we're going to grab the sphere, and make sure it's the material sphere for this. And I'm going to override the material by ticking this box, which lets us go into the required and give it the material that we want. In this case, shield _M. Now, I'm going to quickly tick use local space so that we can move the shield around and we won't have to reset the emitter every time it moves. And we're going to set the emitter loops to 1. Now you notice I can't see any emitters, it's because they're massive. Hello. I'm going to go to spawn, I'm going to set their constant to 0, and under burst list I'm going to add an array element and set the count to 1. I'm going to go to the lifetime and set the lifetime to 10. Now the lifetime is going to be dependent on how long you want a shield to last for. I'm using 10 because it's a nice long number. Initial velocity I'm going to delete because I don't want this to move. The color over life, I'm just going to change this to a constant. I'm going to leave the alpha over life as an alpha over life. Now the constant color, I'm going to change this to something a bit more suited for me. Lovely, lovely green. Now I'm just going to boost the value up, which lets it glow. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. We've got some nice glow, and you can see that the glow is a lot brighter where we've got the Fresnel, which is around the outside. Now what I'm going to do is right click, I'm going to go to the rotation, rotation rate rather, and we need initial mesh rotation rate. Now it's different from an initial rotation rate, which is what's in a normal particle. In a normal particle we get the initial rotation rate, which is just, it's either rotating or it's not rotating, and then this determines how quickly it's rotating, which is fine for a regular particle because they're essentially just rendered onto planes and they always face the camera, so they're only going to rotate the image. But with a mesh, this isn't going to work. With a mesh, we need to go to rotation rate and then use initial mesh rotation rate. What this does is it gives us 3 different coordinates. Now I don't want the X or the Y to rotate, I just want this to rotate along the bottom. And then I'm going to say 0.2 minimum and maximum. That's a bit high. 0.1 minimum maximum, there we go. Which is cool, and now it's rotating from the center point, which is where the pivot is. So I'm also going to say go down to the size. I'm going to say size by life. And at the beginning I want this to have no size. And you'll notice it's growing from the middle, which is exactly what I want. But this is taking too long because the in value of 0 is when the emitter begins, and the out value here, well in 0.1, the in value is 1, which is when the emitter dies. Now, I don't want the emitter to die when it gets to full growth, so I'm going to say 0.2 is when I want it to be its maximum size. So then essentially what we're going to get is 8 seconds worth of it being maximum. Now notice that the alpha over life isn't working, but it should be. Perhaps it's because we've set this to a constant. So I'm going to change this back to a constant curve and give it 2 array elements. I'm just going to set it to the green that we had, which is about 10 there. And this, I'm just going to say 1. And we'll set this to white, perhaps. Now we should get some, it should fade out as it gets whiter. Or not, just call me a liar. Let's quickly change the initial size, because we don't want this to be initial size of 25, because that will be massive in the world. Let's zoom into this. I know why the alpha of a life isn't working. I am a giddy goat. Let's go back into the material. Hold M and left click for multiply. We haven't put the particles alpha in to the opacity. There we go. Now the alpha over life. Let's rewind. Now the alpha over life will work. So I'm going to go to color over life and change the color back to a constant without a curve and change it to a nice green with some glow. There we are. Let's get in a little bit closer to this. That glow is not very glowy, is it? Let's take out all the blue. I can set this to 20. Glow, my precious. There we are. And now it should fade out as it approaches death. And it is. Very, very nice. There we go. So this is pretty much all we need this to do as a shield. It just needs to grow, gain color, lose color, and gradually disappear. So I'm going to drag this into the world really quick to see how big this is. And that's where our player is starting. Yeah, not really a preferable size, that. So I'm going to go into the shield particle system, and its initial size I'm going to set to 3. I could probably change this to a constant and set it to 3. We don't need any curve. So now we have this, which is 3 high. Yeah, that's nice. It's very nice. I'm just going to quickly get rid of it in the level because we don't need it there. Now what I'm going to do is go to my third person blueprint folder, go into the third person blueprint, and I'm going to say left mouse button. So I'm assigning this to a mouse press, and from here I'm going to say spawn emitter attached. I'm going to grab the capsule component and plug this into the component. And then the emitter template I'm going to set to shield. From the capsule component I'm going to get location, and we've got get relative location. We don't want world location because if we use world location we're going to get a weird offset depending on where the character is in the world. And then that is going to make the shield spawn off to the side, but it will still follow him and it will be really weird looking. We're going to plug this into the location, and this is set to auto destroy, so we should be fine for the emitter to kill itself when it is finished. So if I press play and I left click, oh, there we go, we've got the weird spawning over at the distance. Now why are you doing that? Let's see. Perhaps we don't want to use the capsule component. I'm going to grab the mesh. Oh, there we go. So he's spawning on the mesh, but he's spawning way, way, way below where we need him to be. So to fix this, what we're going to do is open up the third person character, and we are just going to make a location. So from the relative location we want to drag off, and we want to break the vector. Now the X is fine and the Y is fine because that's like width and depth. So we're just going to make a vector from those. Just plug those directly in. From the Z we're going to add some more, and we need a float plus float. We'll plug this into the Z, then we're going to plug this into the location. And we're going to try some numbers here. Let's try 160. Press compile, and we'll press play, and we'll click. There we go. Now if he jumps he's still inside of it. I think I might want him to have that a little bit higher than 160, so I'm going to say 180. So I essentially need it to spawn from about his middle. That's actually better. So he's in the middle of it while he's jumping. Yeah, it's quite nice. But you'll notice that we're not getting much of the detail in the middle. Or are we? Do we like that? If we want this shield to be a little bit more defined, we can head to the material, which has decided it doesn't want to open. There we go. And we can hold M and left click, and then we're going to multiply the texture sample. And we're just going to say multiply this by 5. Which will make that a much more defined shape. And we'll apply that we'll press play and click. Oh, it hasn't compiled the... Ooh. So that's a lot more glowy because we have a lot more white in there now. But we can see the shape better. So perhaps we'll turn the glow down. So color over life, we're going to change this. We're going to change the constant down to 10. Lower still, perhaps. That's still very, very high. 5. We'll save that out. We'll press play. If we click, there we go. That's quite nice. But I quite like the Fresnel, but I think the Fresnel could be even more powerful too. So let's change the exponential a little bit. In fact, let's start previewing this Fresnel just so that we can see the Fresnel. So we want a lower exponent. Yeah, 3's nice. So we're going to stop previewing that, and then I'm just going to multiply this by perhaps 3 before I plug this into there. So that will make that a little brighter. Ooh, yeah, let's turn that exponential down some more now. Let's say 5. I was going to say 6, but I was looking at 6 while I pressed 5. I'm not sure now as to whether or not that's a bit too much with the multiply. I might just remove the multiply. So let's press play and click. Yeah, it's a bit too much with the multiply. So we're going to go back in and just plug this straight into there. And maybe I'm going to turn the exponential down. No, up to maybe 10. Although that's going to be very, 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 very thin. But maybe that's nice. Let's check it out. Yeah, that's really nice. So there you have it. I mean, we can go in and we can say, ooh, you know what, I actually don't fancy a green shield, I fancy a... Ooh, let's change that to 5. I fancy a yellow shield. But we'll remove some of this, so we get like a... Yeah, like that. Save that real quick, and then poof. Yeah, very, very nice. So there you have it, and this will stay attached to the character. So you can run around with a shield. If you decide that you want one more more Halo style, so I believe that he can drop the shield on the ground, can't he? So if we go to the third person blueprint, and we say blueprints, and say third person character, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say, this time, right mouse button, and we'll just grab all of this because we need this still, and paste this, and we'll say spawn emitter at location, and we'll just plug the location in, and then we'll say shield P, and we'll compile that. Now if we press play, we right click, he has one that he can leave behind. Whereas on left click, he has one that he takes with him. Now the right click one is actually a little bit lower. Oh, that's keeping his relatively... Oh, okay. So for the right click, we don't want the relative location, we're going to want world location. Whoops, why am I setting? Get world location. And then we'll break that factor instead. This is where it decides that doesn't want to work. Oh, it does. But now we don't need the offset. So we'll just plug this Z straight in. And boop. Oh, we need a bit of offset, just not that much. So for the sake of you know, making sure that you guys get everything you need, we're going to lower this down to perhaps 90, and then if we go in on the right click and then the left click, they're pretty much the same. So you have it, you've got one now that you can leave behind on right click and one that you can carry with you on left click. If you decide that you want these to spawn in a little bit faster, we can go back to the particle system, and in the size by life, in the 0.1, you can just change this down. We'll say in 0.1 it will be fully grown, There we go, and now you have a much quicker shield growth. Oh, that looks weird when you stack them up, doesn't it? So, I hope that's something you guys can use. I hope that the volume's been better, and yes, as I said at the start, if there's something that you don't like, please tell me so that I can improve these for everybody that watches. Thanks very much for watching. You guys' support has been awesome. I'm going to continue to do this alongside my studies because I find it fun, it's relaxing, and I just like to be helpful. So I shall see you guys next time.